All right, let's do it. The final MLB Deeper Dive of the 2018 season. Glad to be with you, Dave Loughran, Adam Shaw. This is it, man. 13 games, and the book is closed. Sure, there'll be some content over the weekend, but this is the last Deeper Dive, Adam. How you feeling, man?
Pretty good. A nice Friday slate. I wish there were better tournaments. I thought that there would be some monster tournaments because I know King of the Diamonds tonight. I thought that DraftKings would have some of their really rake heavy and top heavy stuff, but I thought there would be better tournaments tonight.
They usually do have supplementary big tournaments whenever there's another big one. Yeah. Not the case. Not the case, but we've got a lot to talk about. And
to make me want to lose my money.
Right, exactly. Yeah, as always. Let's just jump right into it. We got 13 games, so I want to get through all of these comprehensively. Houston and Baltimore. We've got Garrett Cole and David Hess. Same matchup as yesterday. That game got rained out. Apparently, Garrett Cole was between 12 and 15% everywhere. So if you didn't have Garrett Cole and you felt pretty good about it, some people took the risk. It didn't pay off in that event, and now he's back on this slate. But the difference is, and I talked about this a little bit in today's article, Adam, now you still have Garrett Cole, and, you have him actually, I think it was originally going to be Verlander, who was 13,400, but, you have Garrett Cole because it was pushed back. He's still in the same great spot he was yesterday, but now you have Patrick Corbin, Ryu, Clevenger, Foltynewicz, Glass. Now I could go on. They're way more good pitchers than we had yesterday. Not nearly as much of a priority as he would have been yesterday had there been no bad weather.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he's still in a really good spot, and I still think he's a top pitcher. But yesterday was kind of just play this guy because everyone else sucks. That's not the case today. I do think it's a good spot, though. I mean, it's still the worst team in baseball that he's facing in Baltimore. He has still been really good. He had that little down stretch a month or so ago where he struggled, but he's bounced back nicely. And if anything, he's actually been better against left-handed hitters than right-handed hitters this season. And Baltimore's running 6 left-handed hitters out there, most of them not very good either. So, yeah, I mean, it's still a really good spot for Cole. The argument would be, especially in tournaments, that you can get the same ceiling for less money.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, you have Garrett Cole in a really good spot. I'm echoing. Is there a reason I'm echoing? Do you have something going on your side that's making me echo?
I don't hear any echo.
I certainly did. Now it's gone. Thank you. I don't know what you did, but thank you.
Our producer.
Yeah, it might have been Dan. Could have been Dan. But no, you have Garrett Cole in a very good spot, but he's also very much more expensive than everyone else, at least on DraftKings. I still think he's a perfect play, but I really don't mind going down a notch on this slate, whereas yesterday you really didn't have that option outside of John Lester. But you still have David Hess on the mound too. And this Houston team, squaring off against him should be able to put up their fair share of runs. I liked Houston a lot yesterday. Obviously the weather took that away from us, but this was an Astros team that was in a good spot in the same matchup at the same park yesterday. And, I guess we'll just hit on it quickly because this is something we've covered. 70 degrees at Camden Yards. It's still a hitter-friendly park, and this is a pitcher in Hess who is pretty contact-heavy. It gives up plenty of power to lefties and righties alike, way more to lefties, but still plenty to righties. Are you targeting Houston here?
Yeah, we talked yesterday. I thought Alex Bregman was a particularly good play. I mean, obviously, pretty much all the Houston bats are good plays because it's a high upside spot against a not very good pitcher and Baltimore's bullpen, but in particular, Alex Bregman, I thought, stood out because when Hess does have success, it's normally because he gets swings and misses on his slider. And Bregman has about a 5.5% swinging strike percentage against right-handed sliders this year. But this lineup's actually a bit better than it was yesterday, too. Marwin Gonzalez back in the lineup, batting fourth, 4,200 on DraftKings. It's not the best price we've had on Marwin this season, but he is still shortstop eligible. He is still cheap, and he is still left-handed against right-handed pitching. So I think that's a nice price tag. Carlos Correa.
Altuve's leading off too. Altuve's got the leadoff spot, which is really nice.
Yeah, Altuve leading off. Reddick still in the top, batting second, so at the top of the order. It's a lineup bump for him. It's a different Houston lineup than we've normally seen, but it actually kind of makes them more valuable than they normally are with no Springer. With Altuve, Reddick, Gonzalez all bumped up.
Yeah, I like this team. I really like Altuve a lot here. And second base, there are a lot of good hitting options today. There's no denying that. I mean, most positions have a lot of depth. So, I don't think anyone's a priority here, but Bregman and Altuve are my two favorite plays. You don't have the 5 and 6 Gaddis, McCann. You have McCann batting 7th, no Gaddis. But it's definitely a stackable lineup. There's no doubt. And Altuve and Bregman be my top guys. Marwin's a fine play because he's batting cleanup, batting from the left side against Hess. But like you said, he's not particularly cheap either. Philadelphia and Atlanta. I want to talk about Foltynewicz here. The Phillies lost 8 straight games. They're terrible, man. At Coors Field, they can't mount more than 2 or 3 runs in a game. Folty has a 26% strikeout rate or higher against lefties and righties. He's just been so much better this season. He's really proving that he's a really solid right-hander. I just think, I'm generally more willing to pick on the Phillies than you are, but they have the 3rd highest K rate on their active roster versus righties. It's only getting worse. The only thing they do is ever, hit rogue home runs, and they don't load up on base runners. They aren't walking like they used to. I just feel like, when you have J.A. Happ at 10-2, Clevenger at 10-4, Freeland at 9-3, it just seemed, and even Bumgarner at 88, it feels like Foltynewicz is underpriced here.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I mean, this is a guy who, for a lot of the season, I think we've been saying is slightly overpriced, but it's because he's been like 10,500. There's never been a question about how much talent this guy has. He's having a really good year. I mean, in the past, he's been really good against righties and he struggled with lefties. This year, he's been striking out everyone. He's been really good. And this is one of the cheapest price tags we've seen on him in a really long time, coming in his last start of the season at only $9,000. So, yeah, I do like Folty quite a bit. You mentioned Philadelphia struggling. This isn't the best lineup, like they act like the best lineup for Folty. I mean, they do have Bour and Santana in there, which makes it a little bit tougher. You have Herrera batting 3rd, but still, I mean, if you can just kind of navigate your way through like Bour, basically 2 through 4, you're still going to get to like Kingery, Andrew Knapp, the pitcher, and Roman Quinn batting 9th. He's cheap enough that I'm willing to take my chances against this Philadelphia team, especially in tournaments.
Yes, sir. I am. Yeah, the title on YouTube still saying that it's Fast Eddie Fierce preseason prognostications. So see if we can get that one fixed.
Everyone knows that's not true. We're both better looking than Eddie.
Yeah, I like Folty, though. I really think this is a good spot for him. I mean, I just have no faith in this Phillies team to be able to produce whatsoever. I really don't. And on the other side, I don't really even know what to make of this here. If Jared Eichhoff, making his first start of the season, he's made 2 relief appearances in September. This is a guy that they planned on having as a starter, just didn't work out this season for injuries and other reasons. I don't personally right now have anything from Atlanta or Jared Eichhoff. Maybe you have something different.
No, I mean, Freddie Freeman in this spot obviously is a play you can go to, but he is priced back up. He was 4,300 yesterday. He's back up to 5,100 today. So, there's nothing I'm prioritizing here.
All right, let's move on then. Talk Yankees in Boston, J.A. Happ, Brian Johnson. It's a good righty park, Adam, and Brian Johnson is not a bad pitcher, but he has had some struggles with right-handed power, and you've got a McCutchen, Judge, Hicks, Stanton, Voit, Andujar lineup, Sanchez, Torres. There's a lot of power righties in this spot at Fenway against Brian Johnson today.
Yeah, there's a lot of right-handed power on both sides, and you have 2 left-handed pitchers going who aren't bad pitchers. Johnson doesn't really get a lot of swings and misses, so he would obviously be the worst out of the 2. And like you said, he's facing the right-handed power of the Yankees. So, Andrew McCutchen's $4,500 price tag is still too cheap. He's basically been too cheap ever since he came to the Yankees because he's been having a really good year, but his price tag is kept down by his production, hitting in AT&T Park for 3/4 of the season. Aaron Judge, a good play. Stanton is probably the cheapest price tag we've seen all season against a left-handed pitcher, especially not an elite one. So there's a lot of right-handed bats that you can go to in this Yankees lineup. And then even on the other side, I mean, J.A. Happ is really good, but he does give up power to righties. He basically strikes out guys and he gives up home runs. And you have this Boston lineup that doesn't strike out a lot. So Mookie Betts, yeah, he's expensive, but it's still a good tournament play. Same for JD, same for Bogarts. Steve Pearson, only 3,900, has to be one of the top value plays, I think.
Yeah, He has to be. I like this Yankees side quite a bit too, though. I think you can go a number of different ways, but there are also, I think you have probably like 5 different collective outfields that are in really good spots today. You know, whether it's this Yankees outfield, whether it's Seattle's outfield, Colorado's outfield, Milwaukee's outfield. There are a lot of different outfields in general where you could make an argument for loading up all 3 spots with a specific team. And I think the Yankees are one of them. I know you've gone away from stacking late in the season, but and I'm not even saying you have to. I think they're all viable one-offs. Judge, Stanton, McCutchen, even Hicks in there. These are all good plays. Outside of Pierce, though, do you have anything on Boston or anything on Happ? Because I personally, there's just no way I can pay 5 figures for J.A. Happ on a slate like this.
No, I mean, J.D. Martinez and Mookie Betts are strong options. They're obviously really expensive, and they're not priorities because it's a 13-game slate with a lot of hitting, but it's still a good spot against Happ.
Yeah. I don't worry too much about Happ. I think, let me tweet this link out. I think with Happ, though, there's just no way you pay that much for him. It's absurd to me. There's like 4 guys around his price range that I'd much rather play. I like the Yankees hitters here. I think they put up pretty solid numbers. They've disappointed us before, but this team's healthy. They have plenty of power against lefties. I don't know. Brian Johnson just doesn't really scare me at Fenway.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's just right-handed power from this game for me.
All right, let's keep it going then. Toronto and Tampa Bay, Glasnow's final start of the season. What do you make of him here? He's 8,700, but since coming to Tampa Bay, he's been really good at Tampa Bay specifically, which makes sense. Very good park, put up some solid numbers there, and he does have decent upside. He's also walking batters at only 8% since coming to Tampa. That might not seem like a low number, but for Glasnow, that's extremely low. So I don't think Glasnow is the craziest play. It's just how are you going to fit him?
Yeah, I mean, it's especially worth paying attention to when you consider the track record that Tampa Bay has with their pitchers. So I think it's a decent spot for him. Toronto, for what it's worth, does only have a 3.3 implied run total, and that's really low for what we normally see with Glasnow. It's only a tournament play. I mean, this guy can pretty clearly suck any given night. Like he does still struggle with walks. He's been better lately, but he has such a long track record. But outside of that, I mean, this is not a good Toronto lineup. It's one of the best lineups he could possibly face. The one guy that I would single out is Kevin Pillar, actually, as weird as it sounds, but hitting second, only $3,900. This is a guy who the last time that Glasnow faced Toronto, I really wanted to play at 1% in tournaments, and he wasn't in the lineup. But Glasnow throws his 96-mile-an-hour fastball about 71% of the time to right-handed hitters. Kevin Pillar this year against fastballs between 93 and 96 miles an hour has a 426 expected WOBA, a 306 expected ISO, and a 9% swinging strike percentage. Against fastballs over 96 miles an hour, he's at 360 expected WOBA, 233 expected ISO, 10.5% swinging strike percentage. Both of those are really, really good against fastballs of that velocity. And then on top of that, we know Glasnow can't hold runners, and Kevin Pillar is one of the biggest stolen base threats in the lineup. So I don't expect this guy to have any ownership, even batting second on a team with a 3.3 implied run total and in the outfield. But if you need value, that he has really, really sneaky upside in this spot, I think.
For sure. Kevin Pillar is like the only stolen base upside in this lineup.
Yeah. It's the perfect spot. And it's why I was so pissed off he didn't start against Glasnow last time, because it's really hard to find guys that actually match up well with Glasnow from a hitting perspective because his stuff's so good. But Pillar is an actually really good fastball hitter, and he steals bases, and he's cheap and unowned. So that's the kind of guy that I want against Glasnow.
Yeah, the only thing about Pillar that would make him a better play is if he walked even a little bit. That would be the only thing, because he doesn't walk at all. But I mean, but if he's going to blast the pitch that Glasnow throws 70+% of the time, then right.
Play.
Yeah. If he's going to put him in play, we have no problem with that. I was a little surprised to see a 3.3 expected total, and mind you, this was around 3.3 before this lineup ever came out.
Yeah, it's a bad park and a good pitcher and a good bullpen.
Yeah, it's agreed. It's still low though. It's 3.3 to me is Like that's the same as Baltimore against Garrett Cole, and Detroit against Zach Davies.
Yeah,
that's ridiculous. We'll get there though shortly because I can't wait to talk about that game. But yeah, just in terms of batters, I don't really have much in this one. I agree with you on Pilar. Glasnow's allowed 18 stolen bases. He's caught only 4. He's just too tall with too long of a delivery to really be able to hold runners, and it's not going to happen today. But anything on the other side for Tampa against Pannone?
No, I mean, it's someone that you can take right-handed hitters against, but I don't really see the need to pay $5,300 for Tommy Pham. $4,400 for Cron is whatever. I mean,
how is Pham that expensive? That's outrageous.
Yeah, we've seen so many like underpriced hitters all year, and then Tommy Pham has been like $500 above what you want to pay for him literally since like May.
Yeah, that's just crazy. There's no way you're paying the same for Tommy Pham as you're paying for David Dahl and Charlie Blackmon.
Right. I mean, the way you get Tommy Pham in your lineup is that you happen to be playing like 150 lineups, and you happen to have like a cheap stack, and Tommy Pham fits in because it's a fine spot. But it's not someone that if you're actually breaking down a slate, you're excited, you want to play.
Right, or you're limiting exposure on Blackmon and Dahl. So I just try and convince me that paying $900 more for Tommy Pham than Nelson Cruz is a wise idea. I don't buy it.
Nelson Cruz has been bad, man.
I know he's been bad, but
I'm completely joking.
Okay, I was going to say he is way too cheap, and he hasn't been that bad. He's just way too cheap. He
hasn't been bad at all. He's been unlucky.
I mean, I thought you were trying to tell me that Pham was worth paying $900 more for a much better hitter in the first place. All right, Yankees and Miami. I'm sorry, Mets and Miami. Jose Urena and Corey Oswalt. Now, right now, if you look at the projected ownership on Awesemo.com, Oswalt's like the 6th highest projected ownership, around like 12%. Zach Davies coming in at number 1 with ridiculously high ownership. We'll get there shortly. Again, I can't wait to talk about this one. But Corey Oswalt, he's a contact pitcher. He was in the minors. He has been since being brought up to the Mets. But he has a good matchup against Miami, and I guess that's all it takes to get a little ownership.
Yeah, I mean, the price tag's cheap, and there's not really a ton of value that you think has a lot of upside on this slate. So to me, that's the argument for Oswalt. It's certainly not a like must-play spot because he hasn't shown that kind of upside. And for the most part, this Miami team does a pretty good job of not striking out. We've seen them be, kind of pesky this year, especially considering how, bad they are as hitters. Oswalt only has an 8.4% swinging strike percentage to righties, 7.3% to lefties. So it's not like he even is someone that we expect to, dominate righters or something like that. It's not the worst Miami lineup either. Like Rojas isn't great, but he doesn't strike out. Castro's a, good enough hitter, and it is a ballpark bump. But then beyond that, Real Muto is a good hitter. Peter O'Brien has a lot of power when he makes contact. Brian Anderson has shown himself to be a pretty good hitter this year. Brinson has power when he makes contact. Austin Dean's been fine. It's not it's a young Miami lineup, and it obviously has the potential to not be good, but this isn't a lineup that I look at and I'm just like, oh man, this lineup's so bad. I can't wait to roster a not very good pitcher against them. If anything, I would actually look to Miami here with the positive park shift for some, cheap one-off power and guys like Peter O'Brien or, Lewis Brinson at 2,800.
Yeah. I don't have really anything from here. I understand why Oswalt's going to have a little bit of ownership. It does. I get it. It's Miami's not good. They have no power. They don't walk. They've been striking out more. I think they have like a top 10 K right now on their active roster. So, all of that does make sense to me. It's hard for me to get behind going to either side of this. If anything, I would agree with you that a guy like Peter O'Brien makes the most sense because he does have enough power and he's cheap. Outside of that, I'll probably pass. Real Muto, also probably someone that I think you mentioned him that you could consider as well. So
yeah, I think 2 through 6 or 2 through 7 are all in play.
Yeah, just
1 through 7 really when you look at Rojas's price tag and position.
Yeah, they're cheap. I've seen Miami stacks win tournaments this year. I forget who it was. He won.
John's on.
Yeah, with the Miami stack, it was like a 4-4 Miami Tampa Bay stack this season. So
if there has been an ugly, nonsensical stack that has won a tournament, it has been Sean's done.
Yep, pretty much. Guy wins a lot. Washington and Colorado at Coors Field, 8:10 start time. Kyle Freeland, who's been very good. John Ross, who has made only 2 starts, but my God, like against lefties, man. I know he has only faced like 30 of them, but he has a 4.9% swinging strike rate against them, 3.5% strikeout rate. I think I mentioned to you that he is throwing the changeup more against him than he has over his career, which should help, but he's getting no ground balls. He's missing no bats. And again, I get it. It's a very small sample, but coming into Coors Field, against David Dahl, who's just been on another level, Charlie Blackmon, Arenado, Story, who comes back after a week saying he might need Tommy John. And over his last 4 games since coming back has 2 home runs, 2 doubles, a triple. I guess this lineup's just filthy right now, and I don't think John Ross is able to survive this.
Yeah, I mean, if Shohei Ohtani showed us anything, having a working UCL just makes you worse of a hitter, and Trevor Story's backing that claim up. Yep. So, Story's still really good at 5,100. But yeah, like Charlie Blackmon and Dahl are the same price, and we've seen that basically every single slate, meaning that Dahl has lower ownership. And what that means for you, if you're making lineups, is that outside of Rocky stacks, you should have higher David Dahl exposure than Charlie Blackmon exposure, because they're basically the same play. Like Charlie Blackmon runs a bit, David Dahl runs a bit. They both have left-handed power. If anything, David Dahl has more of it, but Blackmon has the track record, so he gets the higher ownership. In tournaments, just take the lower-owned one, and it's almost every time going to be David Dahl. So I like him a lot. Arenado at 5K is obviously fine. Joe Ross is, like you said, much better against righties than lefties historically, and he is a fastball slider guy against righties, which means that he can play well in Coors, but still you're getting a discount on, Arenado at 5K, at LeMahieu at 4,400, at Story at 5,100. There's really no reason not to go to these Rockies bats.
I can't remember, seriously, over the last week, I can't remember when I'm one-offing an outfielder in Colorado. I can't remember the last one I've done where it's been Blackmon over Dahl. It really
never should be. Blackmon, any slate that the Rockies are in a good spot, Blackmon's going to be 15 to 20% at least, and Dahl's going to be like 10.
Exactly. It really doesn't make sense. They're both very good, obviously, but
yeah, it's not that Blackmon's a bad play. It's that when you factor in ownership and likely outcomes, the lower owned one is always, between the two of them, going to be the better play, and Dahl is always going to be the lower owned.
Yeah, and honestly, you mentioned that Blackmon has a track record, but there's really nothing right now that says Blackmon is better than David Dahl.
No, I mean, like Blackmon's track, like if you look at Blackmon over the last couple of years against right-handed pitching in Coors, he's been real good. I mean, he has, like a 220 ISO. He has a WOBA up around 400. But David Dahl, in his career, which started in 2016, has obviously been bits and pieces throughout, but against right-handed pitching in Coors over that same, over those last couple of years, he's at like 415 WOBA, 260 ISO, and he's someone that has the pedigree of being a power hitter and a base stealer. So there's really, when you factor in the ownership, there's no reason to ever really play Charlie Blackmon as a one-off over David Dahl.
No, and this year, Dahl's been way better at home against righties than Blackmon. Blackmon's still been good, and I know that David Dahl hasn't seen as many plate appearances, right? I mean, he was out with injury. I understand all of this. But David Dahl has been ridiculous with the platoon advantage at home, as he should be. I mean, he's been really good. He's been close to like Arenado's Story versus lefty at home level. That's how good he's been. So, I love him here. I really like this whole Colorado team. What about this Washington side? Freeland's very good, but I'll tell you what, Adam, I just can't overlook guys like Rendon, because he's so good against lefties. But you're paying a lot for Rendon if you plan on playing him at all. I mean, he is the third highest priced hitter on this slate. He's $5,900 on DraftKings, and on FanDuel he's $4,800. So yeah, it's very expensive against the pitcher that is proven to be pretty good. Freeland is allowing like 1.3 home runs per 9 to righties, which it's enough to target him, but he does a phenomenal job of limiting base runners. He really does.
Yeah, I mean, I just can't bring myself to do it. Like, the price tags are so egregious for they're priced up, obviously for Coors Field, but it's not factoring in at all who they're facing. And
right, Zimmerman was going to be the one guy that I'd be okay with at like 46 or 7 or whatever, but he's not even in the lineup. He's still injured.
Right. So like basically, if you want to play Mark Reynolds at 4K, he certainly has power upside, but Freeland's really good for one. He's good at holding runners. You're talking about Victor Robles at 4,600. I'm not really that interested. Trey Turner everyone's just priced up beyond where they should be in the spot, even when you factor in Coors Field. So unless you want to stack Washington and just hope that Kyle Freeland has, one of those 5 games he's probably going to have every season where he just absolutely sucks and the Rockies bullpen behind him is terrible, there's just no reason for me to pay these prices for Washington bats.
Oh, there really isn't. All right, let's move on then. I think we covered that pretty closely. For me, both of us, I'd say Colorado. I like Story though. It's not a lefty, but man, he's just been so good, and Joe Ross has proven nothing since returning. So Story for me definitely 100% very much in play. And shortstop's not as deep as some other positions. All right, Detroit and Milwaukee. You got Jordan Zimmerman, who just coughs up so much power to lefties and righties alike. And then Zach Davies. Zach Davies right now with projected ownership of 42%, Adam. I couldn't believe my eyes when I started writing today's article and I saw that the Milwaukee Brewers, the Detroit Tigers have the third lowest implied run total on the slate at 250 or at 3.3. And Davies is the heaviest favorite on the entire slate at minus 250 at home. It's pretty incredible, isn't it?
Yeah, but I mean, I think DraftKings just kind of messed up his price tag. Like even just scrolling through, if I pulled up my phone, like to just see who is on the slate, I scroll through and it's like, okay, Zach Davies 5,300 against Detroit is just a mispricing. Like he's not a high upside pitcher, but
he should be like 65 at least, 65.
Right, exactly. And he was like 59 last start, and that was a worse matchup, and it was still borderline. I guess I have to play some Zach Davies because he's so cheap. Now you have him, basically as like a 4-inning relief pitcher, and he's facing the Tigers. So yeah, I mean, in cash games especially, I think this is a spot you go to just to fit in the bats that you want. In tournaments, you can certainly fade him and go to, I don't even know who, like Kristen Stewart's not in the lineup.
I think Gio. Oh, you're talking about hitters. I was going to say Giolito is an interesting pivot because no one's going to touch him.
Yeah, no, we're going to agree on Giolito. I was trying to think like normally in this spot I want to like leverage against someone, but
Kristen there's nobody.
Right. Nick Castellanos is 4,700. Kristen Stewart's not in the lineup. The Brewers have a good bullpen. I don't really know what the hell you do to leverage against him. I think pivoting to someone in his price range is probably the easiest option, and we'll talk about Giolito when we get there. But, it's a perfectly fine spot for Davies. I have no issue playing him in any format. It's just a complete mispricing. The only reason really to consider fading him is high ownership on a guy that isn't a strikeout pitcher.
Yeah, and to be clear, he's the first guy I mentioned when we got to punts in today's deep dive article. Like obviously, it obviously has to be the first guy you meant, especially when you're like if you're 5,300 and you're the heaviest favorite on the slate and it's not a bullpen game, like
you're not a bad pitcher. Like
he's not. You know what it is? He's just not a high upside pitcher. That's the biggest thing.
He's not a great DFS pitcher. He's not a great real life pitcher. He's a perfectly average, mediocre pitcher. Right.
Like in a spot like this, 15, 18 points certainly isn't killing you, and it's kind of what you expect. So, I it's funny too because I wanted to look at some guys that I could play against him, but I think really the play here would be just to play another pitcher in the similar price tier instead of trying to stack against him because I don't think there's much there.
Yeah, and especially when you factor in the Milwaukee bullpen. I mean, it's been a tough spot to stack against all year with teams much better than Detroit, and the good hitters on Detroit are as expensive as they should be.
Right, exactly. What about Milwaukee? Because you have Travis Shaw, you have Yelich, Kane, Mike Moustakas, Aguilar. Zimmerman just gives up so much power.
Yeah, and Detroit has a bad bullpen, so I think you can certainly like these Milwaukee bats. The roof, it appears, is going to be open, and it's like 50 degrees, so that's not something I'm overly excited about. But still, you have a pitcher in Zimmerman who gives up a ton of power, and you have a bullpen behind him that's really, really bad. So full stacking this team's fine. I think I would have trouble getting to Yelich at 6K as a one-off. Just, I understand he's been phenomenal and he has an ISO over 300 at home, but on a slate this big, it's kind of hard to get there as a one-off for me. But if I were full stacking this team, obviously I'm going to play him. Ryan Braun at 4,300 is this team in general as one-offs is kind of at like the upper end of where I would feel comfortable rostering them. But I do think it's a high upside stack.
Right, exactly. And it's definitely a high upside stack just from the power, just the power alone. Zimmerman could give up 4 runs on 4 solo shots, and I'm okay with that.
Don't sleep on Eric Kratz either at 3K. The guy does have some pop.
Yeah. Once in a while, you'll see that stray home run that'll get you where you need to go. White Sox in Minnesota, second of a doubleheader, Adam. Giolito, and we've got ourselves Chase De Jong, another one that's similar to Oswalt in that, like, not going to strike a lot of guys out, but he has a good matchup against the team that does strike out, and he's really cheap. So, maybe he'll have some ownership. I think right now he's probably not that far off in ownership from Oswalt. But honestly, I think if I were to go away from Davies, it'd probably be Giolito. He's got a 35% whiff per swing rate on his slider and on his changeup, which tells me that against lefties and righties, he does have at least a little bit of strikeout upside. He's pretty much the same price. This Minnesota team playing their second of a back-to-back, there's a good chance they run out. Oh, we have the lineup here. I guess it's pretty similar to the one we saw earlier today. I didn't look to see if you don't have Estudillo, so that's good. Seriously, the guy doesn't strike out. So I don't think Giolito is crazy if you just want to be different. I really don't.
No, I actually like him. And if you're looking at box scores, you're going to see that, it's going to be like, oh, Giolito struggled again against the Cubs. All right, one, that was a tough matchup against Chicago. But if you watch that game and you had Giolito like I did, it was incredibly frustrating. It was, I don't remember details anymore, but it was just a lot of, blue pits, and then more blue pits. And it was basically just Giolito pitched really well, actually. I think he struggled in the first inning, and then he was good for a few innings, and then he ran into trouble again, just, basically getting bled to death on balls that shouldn't have been hit. So I was actually really impressed with him in that Chicago start. He did have an 11.1% swinging strike percentage, a 39% O swing percentage, which against the Cubs, both of those are really nice. And then now you're going against this Minnesota team that's nowhere near as good as the Cubs. And they do have 6 left-handed hitters in this lineup, which for Giolito is actually beneficial because you're talking about someone who does have that nasty changeup that we've talked about and who can really strike out left-handed hitters when he's able to throw strikes and have them chase that pitch out of the zone. So I certainly think there's upside here with Giolito. I think he has more upside than De Jong. I think he has more upside than Davies. I think he easily has the highest upside in this price range, and he's not going to be as highly owned as guys like Zach Davies.
Not going to be as highly owned. He's not going to be owned. Like right now, he has this is just projected ownership, but right now the difference is around 38%. And
that's absolutely insane.
It is insane, but you mean you think it's way off, right? Because I don't think it's that far.
In tournaments, you should have more exposure to Giolito than to Davies. Simply because Giolito is more likely to score 30 points. No,
you're missing what I'm saying. Are you saying it's insane? You think that that's not projected right, or it's insane that could actually be the case?
I could see it being I don't think it'll probably be 20 to 30%, not 38. But
right.
I'm saying it's insane that could happen.
And I think it really could. Factor in Davies' price tag with the Vegas odds and the money line and the expected run total, and that's a recipe for ultra chalk. And the great thing about Davies, if you're fading him in tournaments, is it's so unlikely. And of course, like I said, career game from Davies, it's so unlikely that this guy gives you 25, 30 fantasy points and kills anyone that didn't play him.
Right. So he basically just has to have a bunch of fly balls and line drives hit right at people.
Yep. Giolito was the second guy in today's punts in the article, just because no one's talking about him. Talking about like 4 or 5% ownership. To me, I don't see enough disparity in talent to say I've got to go Davies over him in tournaments. There's just no way.
I would play Davies over him in cash games. If you told me that, even if I was playing 150 lineups, if you told me I had to choose and I could only roster one of Giolito or Davies in tournaments, I would just make it all Giolito.
Exactly. All right, Cleveland, Kansas City. We got to motor through this a little bit. Clevenger and Ian Kennedy. You could touch on Clevenger real quick if you'd like, and then I want to just get to Kennedy's home run problems because I personally think that Edwin Encarnacion is one of the top plays on this slate.
Yeah, I mean, Clevenger, I'm not going to try and talk you off of him. The argument that I would pose is that Patrick Corbin's a better pitcher, and he's way more expensive than Foltynewicz in a really good spot. So if you want to roster Clevenger, if you're running a bunch of lineups and he's landing in there, then go for it. Like he certainly does have the upside in the spot, but he's just not someone that I can really find myself prioritizing when he's more expensive than Folty and he's similarly priced to Corbin.
Exactly. I planned on writing up Clevenger, ended up having him just as an honorable mention because I'm thinking there's no point of me saying how good Corbin is at this price and that his last few starts have been not unlucky, but nothing has changed. And that Foltynewicz is too cheap, and like there's just Clevenger doesn't fit into the equation where you'd like him to. On another slate, he probably would, Adam, but on this one, it's just not there. So I'm with you. But on the other side, I know guys like Jose Ramirez have been pretty quiet lately, but I just can't help but love Edwin Encarnacion here. I mean, the guy's splits against same-handed hitters have been phenomenal this year. He has clear 2 home run upside. Kennedy allows almost 2 home runs per 9 to righties. Fly ball pitcher, lots of hard contact, not a lot of strikeouts. I love Encarnacion tonight.
Yeah, I'm with you. My only words of caution would be don't watch the game because if you remember from early in the season when we targeted Ian Kennedy and it was 55 degrees in Kansas City and you just got all these flyouts to the front of the warning track. Yep. And then the whole middle of the season, he got blown up because the ball carries. Now we're back to that 55-degree weather with the wind blowing in. This is a guy who kind of makes a living off of getting balls to not go over the fence and to land at the front of the warning track. So it certainly has the potential to be a very frustrating spot. But, Encarnacion does have the power to do a lot of damage here.
I'll put it this way. If there's one home run from Cleveland against Kennedy, I'd put my money on Encarnacion. I'll put it to you that way.
Yeah, I agree.
Anyone else from this one?
Nope.
All right.
It's a good running spot for Merrifield, Mondesi, and Gordon.
It is. But at the same time, in saying that, these guys aren't that cheap. So
right. Yeah. Gordon's the only one that's cheap, and he's an outfielder.
I guess Merrifield at 42 isn't bad, but Oakland and the Angels. What do you have for me on this one between Mike Fiers and Jaime Barria? By the way, just your daily reminder that Cole Calhoun is $3,300, even though he's been sucking ass.
Yeah, I really don't have much. I mean, if you want to play Mike Trout, I'm not going to tell you not to. Mike Fiers does still give up power. He still has a very high expected WOBA, even over the last month and a half against right-handed hitters. And Mike Trout's the best hitter in baseball. But in terms of, a 13-game slate, it's hard to prioritize anyone that's in this game, with 2 pretty good pitchers in a tough park for hitters. So Mike Trout, Shohei Ohtani, both of them I think are fine. Calhoun's just broken again. I mean, the guy had that month and he's just back to being absolute trash. Jaime Barria has been good. Really, he's been good against lefties all year long. He's improved against righties lately, getting more swings and misses. If you wanted to go to a Chapman or a Davis, I think that's fine, or even a Piscotty, but just nothing that I'm prioritizing here.
Very hard to see him as anything outside of tertiary options.
Yep.
However, once you get to Seattle and Texas and you see Martin Perez, who, by the way, has allowed more home runs on the road than he has at Globe Life this year. He's actually allowed 10 on the road, 6 at Globe Life. And mind you, this is not a guy that's made a whole lot. He's made 21 starts, but he was out for a little while. And, he's just really not good against righties. You have a Seattle team with Cruz at 4,400 on DraftKings, Mitch Haniger in the leadoff spot, 4,600. Gene Segura, I think, is like 3,900. Or what is he? No, he's 44. I'm sorry. 44. Ryan Healy, another guy with a little bit of pop, 3,600. I mean, there's just so many different ways you can attack this Seattle team against Martin Perez.
Yeah, absolutely. Nelson Cruz's price tag on DraftKings has just been broken for a while. So 4,400 here.
But this is like the first This is the first good matchup he's had since it's been broken. Like the first one where you're, instead of just being like, because I know you always say just Nelson Cruz is too cheap, so you have to consider him. But this is the first one where it's like Nelson Cruz is too cheap and he's in a really good spot. So now you can really tell his salary's broken.
Yeah, I mean, he was 4,300 against Brett Anderson at 5% on the other day. But outside of that,
Anderson's still markedly better than Perez. That's how bad.
No, I agree with you there. And 4,400 in this spot's just stupid. He should be chalk. I assume he will be. If he's not, everyone else screwed up. But it's actually a good Seattle lineup too. I mean, 1 through 6, they're all guys that have big upside. Cano's the only lefty in there, and he hits lefties perfectly fine. He'll hit whatever trash can righty the Rangers bring in if Perez gets knocked out early really well. So 1 through 6, I think, are all really high upside spots. Beyond that, you're getting into guys that would only be if you're playing 150 lineups and running 5-man stacks and just trying to get different versions of the Mariners. But 1 through 6, all really high upside. I think that Healy at 3,600 has way too much upside for tournaments. Cruz and those are the guys that I would target in tournaments the most.
Sean V says, these Mariners all suck at home. Stacking against Perez is always fool's gold. I love when people think it's a good idea to stack against Perez. It never works. I mean, hey, it's your opinion, man. But I tell you this much, to not acknowledge that Nelson Cruz is too cheap, that Ryan Healy at 3,600 batting, what's he batting, like 5th or 6th? 5th? Zunino at 6th, that those aren't well-priced plays with upside. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, most years I think that it's normally a one. Most years I actually say that you should stack against Perez because he's a ground ball pitcher who normally if you're going to get to him, it's because he gives up a bunch of singles when you get to the bullpen. But this year he has a pretty decent sample size, 48% ground ball percentage against righties. He's given up 1.9 home runs per 9. He struck out 12%. He's walked 10%. He's allowed a 408 WOBA. I don't know if I'm not stacking against guys like that. I don't think I'm ever stacking.
Yeah, not to mention Texas doesn't exactly have an elite bullpen either. I know that Safeco Field isn't a hitter-friendly park, but it doesn't mean that you can't still put numbers up against them. I'm not even recommending you have to stack them. Just that if you're playing cash or even outside of cash and you're not considering these guys at very cheap price points, then it is what it is. All right.
I mean, Cruz is the guy that I would make sure that I have, but I think that Zunino has a ton of upside at his price point. So does Healy, so does Haniger, so does Segura, and to a lesser extent, but you should have him in some stacks.
No, yeah. Any thoughts on LeBlanc or this Texas team?
Elvis Andrus' price is just at that annoying point where he doesn't really have a ton of upside, but if you need to save salary, he does have a 186 ISO against lefties over the last couple of years. He's been well above average. So I don't outside of that, there's not really anything.
Me neither. Maybe if LeBlanc was cheaper on another slate, I'd be interested, but not here. Just no need. San Diego, Arizona, Patrick Corbin. So Corbin definitely has not been perfect recently. He's kind of disappointed in each of his last 3 starts, but his swinging strike rate's above 15% in all of them. 25% strikeouts are higher in all of them. His velocity is actually up a mile per hour and over those starts, and nothing about his movement or pitch mix or anything like that would suggest that this is anything other than a hiccup. So I have really no issues targeting Corbin here. He's got the second highest swinging strike rate, the lowest contact rate in the league. I mean, the guy is just outstanding. And he has as much upside as anyone on any slate. He's proven that all season long. Oh, and not to mention, Adam, he's got a slider that he uses just as much against righties as he does against lefties. So, and he gets he has the highest whiff per swing rate among any starting pitcher on his slider this season. That's how good the pitch has been.
Yeah, he's one of the best pitchers in baseball this year, and no one talks about it. If you look at, xFIP, he's one of the best. If you look at swinging strike percentage, he's one of the best. If you look at strikeout percentage, if you look at K- walk percentage, he's up there in all of these categories. And nobody really talks about him that much because, granted, he has been, kind of inconsistent. But when it comes to tournaments, it's not something I care about. He's $2,000 less expensive than Garrett Cole. He's facing the Padres here in San Diego. They have a 3.2 implied run total. Mike Fiers just got scratched. I guess we'll have to go back to that. But
yep.
Corbin here, there's no way for me. I love Garrett Cole against the Orioles, but unless you tell me that Cole's going to be lower owned than Corbin, there's just no way that I'm paying $2,000 for him over Corbin when they have virtually the same upside. And yeah, I mean, any given start, Corbin can go out there and put up, 30 to 40 fantasy points. An elite swing strike percentage, an elite O percentage, an elite strikeout percentage. Doesn't walk a lot of guys. He's getting out of Chase Field, going into Petco. I know that Reyes and Renfroe and those guys have power, but there's just so many strikeouts here. I love Corbin. I'm sure I'll be wrong again, but I love Corbin.
I hear you, but you can't get away from him here. It's way too good of a spot. It's too good of a spot, especially when he's too cheap too. He's way too cheap. Lou Trevino starting in place of Mike Fiers, which is funny because Lou Trevino, as we see in the notes here, was dealing with a neck issue just like 3 days back, was reevaluated on Wednesday, and now he is in the lineup. This is someone that it's clearly a bullpen game. There's no doubt about that, Adam, and Trevino is just going to open.
Yeah. Have you seen if we're going to have a starter behind him or if it's a true bullpen game?
I've seen no. I'm looking, but I think the news is too soon. I don't know what. I don't think Bob Melvin's even announced it. Here's what I'd say: we got to be out here by 6:10. We'll let Jake and Chris cover it on the next show because we know they will. Yeah. Because we don't even have the information. There's no need to wait around. Anything else in this game? I usually like to look at Paul Goldschmidt against a lefty, but God, he has been really bad lately, and I just don't even think I'm going to target bats here. Maybe you have a different opinion.
I mean, Goldie would be the only guy for me at 4,500. It's just too cheap for him against the lefty. He has been bad, but even earlier this year when he sucked, he still crushed lefties. So I think that's a really nice price point. But outside of that, there's not really anything.
All right, Hyun-Jin Ryu and Madison Bumgarner. The Rockies just leapfrogged the Dodgers in the NL West. So this is a huge game for the Dodgers here. Hyun-Jin Ryu hasn't thrown more than 93 pitches in a start this year, but he has also just flashed some phenomenal upside. He's been very efficient with his limited pitches. 88 to 93 pitches seemingly every start. He's pretty expensive here, though. It's just we have to at least talk about him because this is a really, really bad Giants lineup that's playing for nothing. Dodgers are playing for something. And while I don't expect Dave Roberts to let him go 110 pitches, I think you get at least 90 plus out of you today. And he's just been really good. That's all. He's been amazing against righties.
Yeah, he has been really good. The issue is just the price tag for a guy that probably throws 90 to 95 pitches. I can't bring myself to pay $2,100 more for him than for Foltynewicz. I can't bring myself to pay more for him than for Patrick Corbin. He is a bit cheaper on FanDuel, but he's still in the same price range as Corbin. He is still more expensive than Foltynewicz, so I can't bring myself to roster him. I think it's a really good spot. I'm not interested in hitters against him. And if you're trying to make an ownership argument, I would assume he is lower owned than Corbin or probably Folty. But just from an optimal play standpoint, I can't bring myself to do it. Bumgarner, I don't see myself rostering against the Dodgers either. He has been better at home, but he still doesn't have that elite stuff or strikeout upside that he's had in the past. He is facing a lot of very good righties that work pitch counts. I don't love the Dodgers here either. I just really have nothing from this game.
Yeah, neither do I. I feel like Ryu is going to have a monster game, and he's going to do it in 90 pitches. But
I mean, he could go for 26 to 30 here, but then you're still hoping that Corbin somehow goes for 20.
Exactly.
Cole goes for 24.
Even Foltynewicz has. I think right. Foltynewicz at $2,000 cheaper is a better play because they have pretty similar ceilings.
You're just hoping that all these other really good pitchers in really good spots suck while Ryu does his thing.
All right, we got to do this real quick. We got a request in chat. Since it's the last deeper dive, can we do 4 instead of 3? So let's do it. I'm going to go first at pitcher. Patrick Corbin. I do like Garrett Cole. Zach Davies in cash. Foltynewicz, and my pivot off of Davies is going to be Giolito. Go. I'm gonna do
those are my exact same.
All right. Well, give me catchers then.
I like McCann, even though he's batting 7th. I like guy catcher's ugly. JT Realmuto, I think is actually a good play. He's pretty cheap at 4,300. Kratz, Zunino, Kratz at 3K.
Yeah, those are my guys as well. Is Narvaez in the lineup? We don't know yet. If he's batting second, that's a good play as well. First base, give me Edwin Encarnacion. I guess Paul Goldschmidt, even though he's really struggled lately. Tyler White and you can give me a couple more.
Yeah, I was going to throw in Steve Pearce. I'll throw in Jay Bruce is still 3,700, and Peter O'Brien I think has a lot of upside.
All right, second base.
Merrifield, we talked about his stolen base upside. I like quite a bit. It's kind of an ugly position. If VR gets on, he's going to steal on Cole. Jose Altuve, I think's obviously a really good play, even though he's expensive. And Travis Shaw.
All right, Jose Altuve is a very good player. I love Travis Shaw. I have to throw Jose Ramirez in there, and yeah, that'll probably do it for me. Third base, however, there are a lot of guys that are in good spots. Rendon's just too expensive. It's just so difficult to get there. Love Alex Bregman. I think Miguel Andujar is an interesting play if you're stacking the Yankees, and Mike Moustakas. Go ahead.
Yeah, Bregman, Donaldson, Arenado at only 5K, and did I say Moustakas?
No, but I did. So
okay, yeah, Moustakas.
Shortstop.
Bregman again, if you didn't play him at third, Marvin Gonzalez, Carlos Correa, anyone from the Astros. Xander Bogaerts, I think, is a little cheap at 4,600 in Fenway. Rojas, if you need a value play leading off. And Story.
Yeah. Trevor Story. Love me some Trevor Story here. Gene Segura and Lindor, Marwin Gonzalez, and that'll do it. Outfield, I mean, honestly, Milwaukee outfield, Yankees outfield, Colorado outfield. I'm serious. Like, these are all really good outfield spots. Seattle outfield, Haniger, Cruz. Am I missing anything here?
No. You said Colorado, right?
Mm-hmm, of course.
Yeah. Christian Yelich, but he's really expensive.
Yeah. I said Milwaukee outfield. So okay. Stacks?
Yankees, Brewers, Rockies, White Sox, actually. Daniel Palka against DeYoung, I think, is a good one.
I think the White Sox as well. Mariners, Brewers, Rockies, Indians, Yankees, and White Sox. But I do agree, Indians could be a little sketchy there. All right, it's been very fun. Thanks as always for hanging out. It's the last MLB Deeper Dive of the season, but Adam and I will be back. NBA Deeper Dive will be coming up shortly. October 16th kicks off the season. Stick around for the Live Before Lock show. Jake and Chris taking you up to 7:05 for the last Friday slate of the regular season. Good luck tonight.